Hello, welcome to this mini CNC Router 3018 build. Basically the main structure is 20 by 20 millimeter extruded aluminium of fairly high quality. The corner brackets of which I'm putting together here are die-cast aluminium, and they're put together with Allen head screws and T-head nuts, which I actually find the easiest way to apply them is to put them on the end of the Allen wrench and slip them through the slot, and as you turn the wrench they sort of lock in the slot in the aluminium, as I'm showing you here, and they do up, and I've never had one that failed. They're just a little bit small, I think, for my fingers, but if you persevere, they're actually fine. It's important at this stage, because this is the main chassis, to get everything exactly square as you can, because that's going to determine the outcome of the whole build. So here I am checking to see whether it is indeed square. So I check every corner as you build it. So then you don't, if you have a problem further along the build, you don't have to go around checking every corner to find out, well, where is the problem. The manual that they send, it's got lovely little drawings and lots of nice measurements, and they're all correct, but there is no explanation of how to build this whatsoever. So it's probably a good idea that I've made this video, so you can follow along if you wish. So this is the base of the whole unit, and they do indicate on the drawings how to put the corner brackets, in what formation to put them in. Oh yes, subscribe to my channel, that's always a help. And it's a good idea to have a nice flat clean surface. Okay, so I've assembled the two frames. Okay, so the base and this is the gantry, which would fit on here. Now, although there's very good CAD drawings here and measurements, there's very little in the way of explanation of how to put this together. Now, they indicate here in drawings only that you assemble the gantry on here. But that, I think, or should I say, I think there's an easier way to put this together. And that is, we'll set the gantry aside, and we'll continue working on the base, and we'll completely build the base and put the table on first and get it all nice and square, and then we will assemble the gantry separately. Then when I finish the gantry, I'll put the gantry onto the base. I think that's a far better way of doing it, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm putting the support brackets here for the rails. Now they do give a measurement on the drawings, so I've just put a pen mark there to the center of the rails, or where they should roughly be, and the end of the bracket. So I'm indicating here that there is a right way up and a wrong way up to put the table. The three in the middle there are slightly larger, and well, they are. So I put all the T nuts in, and you know, they will only really go up one way, I think, and then spread them out to accommodate where the bearings and the main screw bearing block goes in the middle. This is the easiest way I can think of to put this together, and that is I assemble all the bearing blocks upside down, as it were. In other words, the frame itself is upside down, and it's just a means of being able to line everything up and put it in there all nice and square. And you'll see what I mean in a few minutes. So everything's put in there loosely, and there's only one way to put these around too. Just notice there I'm turning it around. Yeah, you'll notice that the hole, securing hole, is offset on those bearing blocks. So we just slide the rail through. And then make sure it's square to the frame. That is, the bed is square to the frame, and the bearing blocks are in the appropriate place, and just nip them at this stage, one end only. Make sure that the table's all lined up square, and it's important to get the table square with the end rail that it's just resting against. Because if you get this first rail square, as I was just tightening it down, the other one will just fall into place. And it always pays too to double check your measurements. So then you just slide the rails back out. And turn it up. And that was a little bit too loose, and of course it fell out when I turned it around. So you're just going to make sure that the center bearing block there, the screw thread bearing block, is actually pointed in the right direction. Make sure everything's running freely, and then you can lock it all up nice and tight. So the little NEMA 17s just have a metal plate, and I think at the beginning I said I wasn't quite sure what the little tiny screws were for. Well, this is what they were for. The little M3s that hold the stepper motor to its plate. Don't over tighten these, because you can actually strip the head out. So what I do then is just put a mark in the center line, and I have a mark on the center line then on the chassis, and as I'm indicating there, that's where the motor goes. So I think this is self-explanatory how you put the backlash bearing screw together. It's in two halves. One is actually inside the bearing block there, and the other one is screwed onto the shaft, and there's a spring in between them. So you just screw it onto the end of the shaft, or the screw thread, and then push it into the mate up with the other half against the tension of the spring, and just screw it one into the other, and then screw it on through. And just put in the other, or the far end bearing block on. That's got a little bearing inside it, and if you notice there, I can get my hand out of the way, that there's a little pen mark where the center was, so I knew exactly where to put it. I'm just indicating the center of the threads on that center mark, and just pop the coupling on. And there again, don't tighten these up too much, because you can actually strip them out. Just very firm. Now, don't be too heavy-handed with it. It's only a little CNC router after all. So you just push the, first of all you line the motor up and put it in there. It's sort of firm, but it's not tight yet. So I get the thread in there, and then tighten the two grub screws up on the end of that drive thread. And what I miss out here, I actually did do it, was tighten the motor up. So now we're putting the gantry part together. Now what I'm indicating here is that you see the black tightening screw there on the clamp. That needs to be facing up. And I'm also indicating there that the end of this riser then needs to be at the end of the gantry chassis part, because everything relies on that. Now with the lower one, you need that clamping bracket screw facing down, because otherwise it's difficult to get to. And just put this second one in very lightly. You don't have to tighten the second one up at all. Tighten the top one, the top two rather, and then slot this in. Put it through the top of the Z-axis assembly, put it in and lock it up. Lock it up tight. Now the reason you do that is because then the lower one is adjusted, and you can adjust it exactly parallel with the top one by using the Z-axis, or not Z-axis, but the Z assembly then as a gauge block, as I'm doing here. So you slide it all the way at one end, tighten it up, and slide it all down the other end, and then tighten the lower bracket up. So then you know it's absolutely parallel. And tighten the clamps up. You can see now it's easier to get to those clamps. And then see, you can push it with your little finger, so you know it's exactly parallel. Now this is what I was saying about the anti-backlash. You put one inside the other, compress the spring, and then wind the one into the other. There's a corresponding brass threaded part that's already in the Z assembly. So you're screwing one into the other, and the spring in between them holds them both apart, and that's what allows the anti-backlash mechanism to work. You know, it sort of holds the thread up tight, as it were. And it's just the same process as what we did with the y-axis. Okay, so what I've done there was I tightened up the little blue connector, and I've now wound it all the way up as far as I can to the motor, so I know the motor shaft is directly in line with that shaft. And now very quickly wind it all the way back the other way. Thank heavens for speeded up photography. And then we put the other support in the other end. And really that's the gantry built, apart from the very substantial mounting feet. Now they've used 6 of those corner brackets to mount onto the base. Very, very secure. And you know, you can't go wrong with these. It will only go into one place, so you don't have to worry too much about you know, squareness to the base, because it will only go in one spot. You know, there's not even half a millimeter of, you know, sort of adjustment in any direction. Where it fits, as it were. So anyway, tighten it up, and then you put the bracing in. So it's all really self-explanatory, really, I think. It's not a difficult build at all. So just pop the motor in there. I just used a screwdriver actually just to ease that open, and just slotted it in, and put the electronics on the back. It's all very nicely encased in a plastic case too, and it has its own cooling fan. What I'm indicating there, actually, there's a red spot on the rear housing of the motor that shows you where the positive goes. If you connect it up the wrong way, it just means the motor's going to spin backwards, and you're not going to cut a lot like that. So what I was just doing there too was just I don't know what you call it, platen it, make it look a little tidier. Anyway, I will actually get some Spiroflex to finish up these cables neatly. I didn't have any at the time of building. I only built this yesterday, and I didn't have any. I thought I had some, but I didn't have any. So it's something I'm going to have to get next week. So that's pretty well the end of the build, and everything went, you know, to the numbers. It was a very easy build, really. So thank you for joining me. Please pop in for the next installment, where we actually test this CNC Router part of it to see, well, how it performs and what we can do to make it better. So bye for now.